Good afternoon, Justice Warriors. Thank you for tuning into my channel. Please like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. I am always happy to have new people join me, and I am also super appreciative of my regulars. So thank you, everyone. Let me start with my disclaimer. Everything I say is simply my opinion, simply for the sake of conversation, hoping to open up a discussion and be educational and gain education. My videos are all made specifically for YouTube, which is an entertainment platform. So, I wanted to start this out a little bit differently. Do you remember the comedian Judy Tenuta? She was hilarious. She would say something like, I was on a plane flying to London. It could happen. Do you remember her? She's so cute. She passed away October 6th of this past year. She was 72 years old and she died of cancer. And I just feel like she did so much for our culture and comedy and women's rights. She was fantastic. So I wanted to give her a shout out and then delve right into my notes from the live that I did earlier. And thanks to everyone who was able to join me. It was a very interesting live. I have quite a few notes, so I'm just going to kind of read them because this is like my Cliff Notes short version of the hour-long live. So one of the things that I've been focusing on is the timeline of what happened from the night of November, or the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. So the first thing, I mentioned this yesterday, the first thing you want to do in committing crimes is mess up the timeline, confuse the timeline. I tried to use some big word, obfuscate, I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to sound smart, but might as well just give it up right now. All right. Anyway, changing the timeline, changing the time of death, TOD, is what Heather Measure was saying. I think I got your last name right, Heather. If not, I apologize. Sometimes my handwriting is as bad as these cops that made the lists of things in those affidavits and warrants. I mean, actually, their writing was worse than mine, and I sometimes have trouble reading my own writing. So, Heather Mosier, I think. Anyway, I am very untrusting of people who gloat, and I notice that the lead on this whole Idaho 4 case, the police chief, he tends to gloat a lot, and I don't like that. That makes my stomach turn. One of my regulars who goes by the handle Squirrely Burger questions if there could have been organ harvesting, which is hideous, I know. But I think that it's good to keep an open mind even when it's really rancid like that. I'm sure it's crossed most of our minds, if not all. Something that, I have no desire to try to protect any criminal defendant. My desire is to protect our system, right? Our judicial system. So when somebody tries to use a person having been socially awkward and overweight and having trouble with the opposite gender when they were in high school, when they try to use that to build their case against a criminal defendant, I find it a little absurd. Seriously, are there any of us, no matter how popular we might have been, that were not socially awkward, overweight, or had trouble with the opposite gender? Seriously, who wasn't? Um, Annie Ruler wondered why Chief Fry said up front that he knew it was targeted and that there was no danger to anybody else in the community. And who was it? I wrote down your name. I know I did. Was it Susan Dodge Aglar? No, maybe it was. No, it was Squirrely Burger again. Okay, I'll get to you, Susan Dodge Aglar. But Squirrely Burger remembered Zanime making a video about going on vacation to Washington State that she said has since disappeared. And we all thought that was very interesting because we all remembered Zanime saying she was going to Washington State. And this situation didn't happen in Washington. It happened like 2 miles outside of Washington, maybe 4 miles outside of Washington. Anyway, so we were talking about the Watts case, and was it Jaded Warehouse that claims in her belief that NK was the mastermind behind that, and I made the observation that Chris Watts, had a proclivity to choose very controlling women in his life. His mother was very controlling. Shanann had some issues like that, and NK maybe too. Maybe, right? So Susan Dodge Aglar confirmed in the Watts case that the opening of the oil hatch, the hatch on the oil tank, was 8.5 inches wide, basically the same size as a regular white paper plate. And trigger warning, trigger alert. The toddlers, Bella, who was 5 at the time, and Cece, who was 3 at the time, were put into those oil tanks through those very narrow hatches. And to me, in my opinion, it's one of the indicators that Chris Watts may have had help, and maybe he didn't do it alone, because he told the story that the girls just slid right into those openings, which they did not. And there was a lot of evidence that proved that they were pushed and shoved and probably stomped in. Like I said, trigger warning, and a little tough to hear. I think that was on Cece, maybe Bella, maybe both. But anyway, um, just looking into these other hideous cases. I mean, both of these cases are quadruple homicides, and the Watts case is one of the worst that I've ever heard of or conceived of. And this Idaho 4 is actually even more violent. It's much more um, savage. Really, it is, unfortunately. Um, But, when we're talking about true crime, we're talking about some of the worst parts and worst aspects of human nature. And it is something that I think is really important to try to keep some positivity, try to keep some humor, just to keep your bearings, really. Um, so which one of you brilliant viewers was it that was saying that was this Annie Ruler, or I'm sorry, was it the other Annie? Kopaka's coordinates were the same as to Bohemian Grove, which made no sense to me at all. Um, Kopaka's coordinates, I have no idea how you would get Kopaka's coordinates, but a few people backed this up and thought that it came from a channel, maybe Dr. Thrifty's channel. I'm not familiar with it. I've heard of it, but I'm not real familiar with it. Um, so anyway, the idea that I had is just to try to rule out if there's anything there. Um, it seems like some of my viewers are suspicious that Zanime might have a connection to the Payne brothers. And remember, the Payne brothers and Kopaka, they all served in the army. And Zanime, I think she's in the army. I know she works for NASA. I know she is military. It could be a different branch of our armed forces. But anyway, some viewers were saying that they wish that they knew how to use the Wayback Machine to get her videos, and I recommended maybe hitting up Nerdy Addict and or Shanda from Squirrels on Fire. They're both amazing with the um, technological skill set. Um, Someone even suggested, and maybe it was from that same channel, I'm not sure, but they suggested that the weapon that was used in Idaho 4 would be at the same coordinates as Bohemian Grove. And yeah, that sounds completely insane. And maybe it's out in left field. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. Um, but all of us were a little bit confused about where Monte Rio is, which is where Bohemian Grove is, and it's slightly northwest of Santa Rosa. I thought it was on the east side of Santa Rosa, and I had actually said Santa Barbara when I meant Santa Rosa. Santa Barbara is way south. Anyway, Monte Rio is north of the Muir Woods, which was what I think it was Annie Potts was it was Annie Potts and Annie Ruler, I think, that both had a ton of good information. But anyway, um, couple more things, and just on one of the most recent J is for Justices, and I've been watching a lot of her shows lately. She's been putting together a lot of great presentations. So, Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Gonzalez family, is accusing the prosecuting attorney of leaking information, which has me very concerned if they are leaking information that there could be a mistrial, which would be insane, absolutely hideous. But I don't think Shannon Gray would be accusing nonchalantly a prosecuting attorney of something that serious. So it makes me wonder. I want to give a shout out to another channel that I really enjoy, which she came up for some reason. I can't even remember why exactly. But Mama D, 1111 Tarot, she's fabulous. And I love how she says, "Love you to the moon and back." So I borrowed that from her today. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off because I'm trying to keep these as short as possible. And look at me, I'm over 12 minutes. Love you to the moon and back. Sending you light, sending you love. Make sure you take really good care of yourself. Exercise, eat right, get sunshine, fresh air, be kind, relax, get your sleep and your rest, and treat everyone with respect and make sure everyone around you treats you with respect. And I think that you'll have a good day if you can manage to do all of that, if you can manage to accomplish all that. I know it's a lot. All you can do is your best, right? So, you guys, thanks so much for watching and see you on the next one.